Welcome to this week's episode of Eye on the Tigers. I'm Delaney Barrow, joined by Andy Hewling, and it's another full slate of Auburn sports this weekend. Let's get into it. First up, we have soccer. Soccer opened their spring season last Friday when they hosted Kennesaw State, winning 5-0. They look to pick up right where they stopped from fall season. Andy, what did you notice that the Tigers continued performance-wise from the first half of their season?
I thought they were really aggressive. They came out and they started fast and got 4 goals in the first half, which was really impressive. I thought, just the way that they were able to defend and hold Kennesaw State to a few chances, I thought that was really good from them, and that they're showing that they can start scoring goals more often on the break, but also in the back keep that defensive clean sheet. And obviously, Kennesaw State may be a lesser of an opponent for them, but this weekend they're going to have a tough test against LSU.
Yes, the Tigers do host LSU tonight, the rival Bayou Bengals. It's going to be a really good matchup. This is an LSU team that has continued to improve last fall under their new coaching, and they have grown a lot. Coach Hoppa was saying it this week. And you mentioned they scored 4 goals in the first half, and 4 of the 5 Tiger goals were assisted by Anna Haddock, who got SEC Freshman of the Week. So she has been starting strong, and this team is full of freshman performers, including Maddie Prohaska, goalkeeper, another shutout game. Not a surprise after her impressive performances last semester, but this is definitely going to be a good matchup tonight. The key will be keeping the LSU Tigers offense in front of the defense, because if they get behind, there's not going to be able to stop them. But as long as Auburn can do that, they should have a good chance at winning tonight. But it'll definitely be a good matchup, a close one, and that'll be tonight at Auburn Soccer Complex. Next up, we have gymnastics. Auburn Gymnastics got their first win of the season last week, also scoring their second highest overall during the season. But when preparing this week to travel to the number 1 team in the country, Florida, Coach Graba really stressed the importance of the mental game.
Mainly, it's a mental week. We have to get better mentally this week, and we've been working on that quite a bit. It's a good, challenging week for us. It's the second time we're going to meet the number 1 team in the country, and we're going to meet them on their turf this time. So, lot of things to try to accomplish this weekend, but the number 1 goal is stay healthy, and number 2 goal is get better mentally.
Andy, what will be key for the Tigers if they want to get their second win in a row, especially against this top-tier Gator team?
Well, they're going to have to be even better than they were last week against Georgia. We talked about a lot about how they have to just limit mistakes, and they're going to have to almost be near perfect, because this Florida team is excellent in almost every rotation, but they specialize obviously on the floor. And Trinity Thomas is one of their top performers, and she's going to be an Olympian, probably up there with some of the best gymnasts we've ever seen in college or professional level gymnastics. So Auburn's going to have to be on top of their game. And I think one person who can really do that is Cassie Stevens. She had a great performance against Georgia, scored a career high on the floor, and I felt like that really helped them in the crunch time when they needed points and they needed to get ahead of Georgia to go on and close that matchup. I think Cassie had a great performance on the beam. She held her time on there, and I think, when Auburn had some mistakes on that rotation, she was able to go on the beam and have a great performance.
You're right. Cassie Stevens really shined for the Tigers, and so did Darion Goborn, who was named SEC Specialist of the Week. But this Tiger team, they set for 3 of the 4 events, they set season best, season highs. You mentioned Cassie Stevens. So many other younger players are really stepping up, and this Tiger team, we've talked about it before, all they need to do is just continue to fix those small errors, and it's all going to pay off in the end. And they really did fix those mistakes, those little mistakes last week. And if they can continue to do that, they have a good chance of hanging in there with Florida. And like Coach Graba was saying, it's not necessarily about the wins and the losses, but how well you can perform at the end of the season. And so as the meets draw to an end, the Tigers all have been steadily improving, and they should continue to perform very well, especially against this Gator team. Next up, we have softball. Softball continued their strong season start last weekend at the Osprey Dolphin Invitational, bringing their current record to 5-1. But this weekend, they host the Tiger Invite. After last week's performance, Coach Dean was really encouraged by the Tigers' strong start, although he does think that there is room to improve in all areas, which excites him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I learned that we got some good fight, um, and uh, and we're going to play hard. Uh, we I think our team represented our families, our university, and our athletic program well. Not just in wins and losses, but in the way that we played and the fight that we had in us. Um, it's nice to win some ball games here in the last couple of weeks, knowing that you're not playing your best ball yet. It's scary to think that you're winning and you're playing your best ball. But it's nice to know that there's room for improvement in all areas. So that's what excites me.
The Tiger Invite did start last night, and Auburn opened up the weekend strong with a win over Jacksonville. Andy, what did you notice about last night's performance and the prior weekend's performance that the Tigers can continue to build on if they want to finish this weekend strong?
Although Auburn didn't score that many runs, I think really what has to be said for them is their defense is very strong. And I think that starts with pitching, but just the way that they're able to play, like in the outfield, I think, you just got a great lineup there of like Alyssa Rivera, and who really captains that outfield, and she's kind of the person that's really vocal. She's leading them, and she's also doing things with her bat. But, despite them not scoring a lot of runs, which, I mean, you would want to see them score more if you're an Auburn fan, and they will. But, sometimes it's just games in the midweek that are, can be really challenging, and when you're playing a lot of games, you can get mentally tired. So it definitely happens. But I just think, Auburn's defense is just able to really come up with plays. Their pitchers are just fantastic in the circle. Maddie Penda and Samantha Yarborough is just, they're fantastic. And I think they're really helping Auburn make plays and get outs in the innings.
Yeah, you mentioned how important the pitching staff is, and also Lexi Hanley has really been performing well. But Coach Dean was emphasizing how important it is for the pitchers to stay ahead of the game, because when they get behind on that count, that's when the Tigers start to slack. And you did mention this is a very defensive but also offensive team, and I think they're very balanced, and they do have room for improvement in all areas, but it's very promising, especially with starting out these non-conference games, because these really help gauge where a team is at. And Aspen Godwin at the plate, very promising. She went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs last week, and this team has so much talent, and they're going to continue to try to improve their season record this weekend at the Tiger Invite, which will go into Sunday. Next up, we have baseball. Auburn Tigers swept Presbyterian last weekend and then capped off a midweek sweep of Alabama A&M on Tuesday and Wednesday. This weekend, they will travel to Texas for the Round Rock Classic. Andy, this will be the Tigers' first away game since the College World Series in 2019, which is a crazy stat. But what do you think will be key to bringing home these victories, even though the Tigers aren't going to be in Alabama?
Well, I think they're going to have to come out and have the same offensive intensity that they had in the first few games of the season. I think really, we look at the Alabama A&M game where they scored 33 runs in one game, which almost was just 9 runs short of an NCAA record. It just shows you that Auburn's coming to play, and they're coming to get runs. And sure, it was Alabama A&M, but I think that shows a lot of people that they have an offensive powerhouse that can get runs when they're capable. And they have a great lineup of guys who can make plays. And I think defensively, the pitching was fantastic. I thought Cody Greenhill and Richard Fitz were fantastic through the weekend series against Presbyterian. So they can continue this, and going up against some tough teams from the Midwest like Oklahoma and Baylor and even Texas A&M, I think it's going to be a great experience for them.
It will be a great experience. It will be a great gauge to see where this team is really at. And you mentioned they did play Alabama A&M, but 33 runs is still very impressive. It broke a record that was previously set in 1994. And also, the Tigers' 27 hits tied a program record. And Tuesday, the team and the umpires did do a run rule for that game. But Wednesday, they just let them play. And Brody Moore led the offensive charge for the Tigers. He went 4 for 6 with 7 RBIs. And this team is an offensive powerhouse, and their hitting is contagious. When one player gets hot, several follow suit. And that is going to be really fun to watch this season, because if they can continue to just knock the ball out of the park and get it all the way out in the outfield and find those holes, this Tiger team is going to be really tough to beat. But 4 more of the Auburn Tigers had at least 4 RBIs in this midweek series. And so that just goes to show that their hitting really is contagious. and they have the potential to continue to set and break new records. Next up, we have women's basketball. The women's basketball team hosted their last home game of the season for senior night last night against the Arkansas Razorbacks, and they lost in classic heartbreaker fashion. Andy, the Tigers are still searching for their first conference win this season, and they only have one game left, which will be in Tennessee on Sunday. What do they need to do if they want to end the season with a win?
Well, it was such a heartbreaker against Arkansas. They came so close and then fell right towards the end of that game. And I just think for Auburn, we talked about it a lot. It's just they need to lean on their defense. They need to lean on Unique Thompson. I mean, she's just having a fantastic season. And, for her to go out with a winless season in the SEC would be really a shame for her because she has had such a fantastic career at Auburn. So I think they should play for her and play for Coach Flo because, at this point they're playing for pride. And I know they're still going to go to the SEC tournament, but they're not going to have probably the best chance in it as other teams will. But yeah, I think they're going to have to continue to play for pride and just go at it like that for the rest of the season.
You're right. They are going to have to continue to play hard. And like you said, play for Unique. She has had such an impressive career at Auburn. She's averaged a double-double in all of her games, which is incredible. I mean, her average points per game and rebounds per game, the fact that they come out to a double-double, she just beat the rebound record for Auburn. And last night was all about her. She had an incredible game, and the rest of the Tigers really followed suit. I think that Unique's performance really encouraged them. And I would say that was one of their best performances last night, hands down. They held with Arkansas the whole time. They led for the majority of the game. And then in the final minutes of the fourth quarter, the Razorbacks pulled ahead. But the Tigers really put in all their effort. And honestly, I think they were playing for Unique. It was senior night. And I think that if they can just build upon that mindset going into Sunday, they have a good chance of coming out with a win. And hopefully they can end the season on a strong note because that will be encouraging because even though the season is a year away, there's still a lot to do in the offseason, and I think that the Tigers have a lot of momentum, and they were dealing with some injuries and players out. So once those players are completely healthy, this Tiger team has the chance to be a force to be reckoned with next season. Last up for Auburn sports this weekend, we have men's basketball. The Tigers lost to Florida at home on Tuesday, but will look to redeem themselves on Saturday against Tennessee. When looking back at the loss, Coach Pearl talked about how the injury of Sharif Cooper made a major difference in the outcome of Tuesday's game.
We were built to be able to have Sharif in the middle of the floor playmaking and doing what he does. And as a result, we score 80 points a game offensively. But defensively, to hold Florida 74, 30 in the second half, talks about the effort and the energy.
The basketball team is now on a 3-game losing skid. Andy, what do the Tigers have to do against the Volunteers if they want to flip the switch and get a win?
Well, I think Auburn's going to have to just completely play their hardest. Obviously, defense will be a big key because they just seem to be giving up a lot of points more often than normal. And I just think, really with Sharif's injury, I think Bruce was right about how he's a difference maker. He's at least 20 points extra for Auburn, and I think without him, they were just lost. They looked completely completely erratic without him. I just thought, Johnson playing the point and even Flanagan adding in, not that they're not good players. I just think that they don't have the vision. They don't have the shooting that Sharif has. And I think when he's on the court, he just kind of drives the team on there. And I think really against Tennessee, they're going to need Sharif, but also if they don't have him, just depending on how his condition is, they're going to have to play defense. And that's going to be hard against Tennessee, who loves to score a lot of points.
I agree exactly with what Coach Pearl said. This Auburn team, at where they're at now, they were built to have Sharif in the middle of the floor playmaking. And part of that issue, you mentioned Flanagan. He was forced to play 35 minutes out of position. And the Tigers had 21 turnovers on Tuesday, and Flanagan accounted for 7 of them, which is not great, but that's what happens when you're missing your star player and other players are forced to fill in because they've grown so accustomed to having Sharif back since his absence in the beginning of the season that once they lost him again, it was just like they went back to square one. And so you mentioned this Tennessee, they rely a lot on their younger players. There's some inconsistency with their senior players, but they are also a very impressive team. And Auburn is going to be looking to win again against them. But if they don't improve by last Tuesday's performance, then they're not going to get this win. And this is their second to last home game. And if they want to get 2 more wins at home, the Tigers are really going to have to step up their game and just learn those lessons from Tuesday's game. For our final segment, we have our pick'ems. First up, NCAA with South Carolina versus UGA. Andy, who do you have?
I'm going to take Georgia in this game. They've been playing some good basketball down the stretch in the end of this season. I think Coach Crean has just really improved his team, and they started out really slow, but I think with the recent wins that they've had, especially against LSU the other day, I thought that was really impressive, and he's starting to get a good trend going in Athens, so I'm going to go with the Dogs.
I'm going to have to go with the Bulldogs as well, even though South Carolina is looking for their 10th straight win against Georgia. Very impressive stat. But UGA is averaging over 78 points a game, and South Carolina is 0-11 when allowing their opponents to score more than 75. So I'm going to have to go with Georgia on this. They've been making those shots. Wheeler has really been leading the team, and I think the Bulldogs are going to get a pretty handedly win. Next up, we have Florida versus Kentucky. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with Florida in this game. I know Kentucky has kind of started to improve their game, but I'm going to go with the Gators. I think they've always had the edge on Kentucky recently, so I'm going to go with Florida to get the win over Kentucky.
I think that after seeing Florida play Auburn on Tuesday, they just play very sloppy and they lack control. And Kentucky is on a 3-game win streak. And you mentioned they did improve, and I completely agree, and I think that that's going to be the difference maker in this game. It's probably going to be a close game, but I think the Wildcats have a good chance of getting this win. Next up, we have LSU versus Arkansas. Who do you have?
I got to go with Arkansas in this game after their impressive win against Alabama. They're starting to show form, and I think Moody and Vanover are the 2 guys on their team that really make the difference. LSU is a good team, and I think we saw that against Auburn where they were able to score over 100 points on the Tigers. But I think Arkansas will win this in a good contest.
I'm excited for this matchup. I do think it's going to be a great contest. LSU, Arkansas, 2 of the top teams to watch right now. Arkansas has been on the rise, consistently improving throughout the season. But I'm going to have to go with LSU because Arkansas and LSU, it's just going to be a great matchup. But Cam Thomas for the Tigers, I think, has really been an offensive machine, and I think he's going to look to continue to lead the team. But very excited to watch this one. For our final college matchup, Tennessee versus Auburn. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with Tennessee in this game. I think Auburn at home can be dangerous, but not sure yet if Sharif is going to play or not. And I think there's just a lot of uncertainty with Auburn currently, and just the form that they're in right now, I don't think it's going to speak well. And I think Tennessee, is going to come into Auburn Arena and get this win.
I think Tennessee is looking to beat Auburn pretty handedly. And you mentioned Sharif, not sure when he's going to come back, if he's going to come back at all this season. And Pearl talked about in his press conference, he's in no rush to get Cooper back. So I think that that's going to be a major difference in how the outcome of the game turns out. But Tennessee has been relying a lot on their younger players, including Jaden Springer. He's been a great leader for the team, has not cracked under pressure yet. And so I think that he's going to be one of the key players to watch in this matchup against Auburn. And I do think that Tennessee will get this win pretty easily. Now for our NBA matchups. First up, we have Trailblazers versus Lakers. Andy, who do you have?
I'm going to go with the Trailblazers in this game. I think the Lakers' 4-game skid has me worried, especially without Anthony Davis. I think he's a guy that LeBron really looks for when he's trying to get the ball down low, and he's just a big presence for rebounding and just getting easy layups. But you know, the Lakers are still very talented, but I think Damian Lillard is the factor. He'll hit a lot of dagger threes, and I think him and Ernest Cantor are 2 guys that the Trailblazers really lean on, and I think they'll have big games.
I think that this will be a good game between 2 of the top teams in the West, but I think the Lakers are going to get this win. The Lakers have a better conference record, and even though the past 10 games, Trailblazers have had a better record, it's not by much, and I think LeBron is really a difference maker for the Lakers, and even though Davis will be out, I think that they're going to get this win. Next up, we have Mavericks versus the Nets. Andy, who do you have?
I'm going to go with the Nets. They just continue to roll. Mavericks will give them a contest. I think Luka Doncic is a very good player. He's also Porzingis, and They had a clutch win over the Celtics the other night, and they will come to play. But I just think Harden and Irving are just playing some top-notch basketball right now. Going to go with the Nets in this game.
You mentioned Harden, and Stephen A. Smith actually just called for him to be named the best player in the NBA right now, and so I'm gonna have to go with the Nets too. We've talked about it before, super team. Mavericks will put up a good fight with Luka and their other players, but I do think the Nets are gonna get this win. Next up, we have Clippers versus Bucks. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with the Bucks in this game. The Clippers, I think they're the favorite, but I think the Bucks are a good team. They're always up for the upset, and I think they'll get the win.
I'm going to have to go with the Clippers on this. They just had their third 130-point game of the season, and Paul George was just named NBA All-Star, but he's not dwelling on this, and I think that that's just another stepping stone for him and how he plays, and so I think he's going to be looking to build upon his season performance so far, and I think the Clippers are going to get this win over the Bucks. For our final NBA matchup, we have Pacers versus 76ers. Andy, who do you have?
I'm going to go with the 76ers in this game. I think Joel Embiid is the difference. A couple games ago, he had a 50-point game against the Toronto Raptors, and he was just incredible in that game. And I think his presence is something that the 76ers look for him to be in the leadership role. And, they're a good team with him and Ben Simmons, and those two guys, I think, will have big games in this one against the Pacers.
I'm going to have to go with the 76ers as well, not necessarily because this won't be a good competition, but the Pacers had a week off, a couple games postponed, and they just looked really rusty in their last game. And so I think the 76ers are going to take advantage of this. And I don't think the Pacers are at the level they need to be after that week off to beat the 76ers. And you mentioned Embiid. He's been great on this team, leading scorer. And I think that they're not going to have any trouble taking down Indiana. That's all we have for you this week. For more news and sports updates, head to our website at eagleeyeauburn.com or our Twitter at EETV_sports. I'm Delaney Barrow, joined by Andy Hewling. Have a great weekend and War Eagle.